On the 30th of October 1918, Ottoman forces officially signed an armistice with the Allies on the HMS Agamemnon, marking the end of their nearly 4-year-long involvement in the First World War. The armistice would be in effect the following day. This was then followed by the Treaty of Sèvres in 1920, which partitioned Ottoman territory between the British, French, Greeks, Italians, Arabs, Kurds, and Armenians. The treaty was incredibly harsh and humiliating for the Ottomans, fueling nationalist resistance led by Mustafa Kemal. This resistance eventually led to the Turkish War of Independence, and the Treaty of Sèvres was replaced by the more favorable Treaty of Lausanne in 1923. However, this begs the question, why did the Ottomans side with the Central Powers as opposed to the Entente? As it seemed less risky, especially since about half a century prior, the British and French had assisted the Ottomans against Russian aggression during the Crimean War. To answer that question, we must go back a few centuries to where it all began. After the death of Sultan Sulaiman the Magnificent in 1566, the Ottoman Empire began a gradual decline. Weak and often complacent sultans neglected state affairs while corruption spread through the imperial court. For example, Sulaiman's successor, Selim II, nicknamed Selim the Drunkard, suffered a devastating defeat at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, weakening Ottoman naval dominance in the Mediterranean. Over the following centuries, military stagnation, territorial losses, and increasing European interference steadily eroded the empire's power, leaving it vulnerable by the 20th century. In 1853, Russia sought to exploit the Ottoman Empire's growing weakness, triggering the Crimean War. Britain and France intervened to support the Ottomans and curb Russian expansion. While the Ottomans survived, the war revealed their reliance on foreign powers and their inability to defend themselves independently. Meanwhile, Europe was rapidly changing. The Austro-Prussian War and the Franco-Prussian War shattered the balance of power, leading to the formation of a unified German Empire under Otto von Bismarck. During this period, Italy also unified, and European powers grew increasingly focused on expanding their global influence. By the late 19th century, the empire had suffered repeated losses. Wars with Russia continued to chip away at Ottoman holdings in the Balkans, now without British or French support. Meanwhile, the Berlin Conference formalized the European scramble for Africa, further diminishing Ottoman control. These defeats earned the Ottomans the nickname the Sick Man of Europe. Amid this decline, Kaiser Wilhelm II emerged as a key figure, eager to build a global empire rivaling Britain's. He saw the crumbling Ottoman state not as a burden, but as a strategic ally and a gateway to the Middle East, offering the potential to challenge British and Russian dominance in the region. The Kaiser made highly publicized visits to Constantinople in 1889 and 1898, declaring himself a friend of Islam. He even wrote to Tsar Nicholas II, claiming that if he had no religion, he would certainly be a Muslim. Wilhelm promised to protect the Ottomans from European aggression, positioning himself as their strongest Western ally. Germany backed these words with actions, helping modernize the Ottoman military, funding infrastructure projects like the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. Wilhelm saw the Ottomans as a valuable partner. If war broke out, they could tie down British and Russian forces, relieving pressure on Germany's eastern and western fronts. For the Ottomans, this partnership felt like a lifeline, a chance to reclaim lost glory with the backing of Europe's rising powerhouse. By 1908, the Ottoman Empire's decline accelerated. The Young Turk Revolution forced Sultan Abdul Hamid II to reinstate the Ottoman constitution, stripping him of absolute power. A year later, after crushing a failed counter-coup, the Young Turks deposed Abdul Hamid and installed his brother, Mehmed V, as a figurehead. Real power shifted to the Committee of Union and Progress, a group of nationalist reformers determined to restore the empire's glory. Among them was Enver Pasha, a charismatic military officer who rose to become the Minister of War. Enver admired Germany's military strength and believed an alliance with the new German Empire was key to revitalizing the Ottoman military. By 1913, Enver and the three Pashas, Talat and Dechmal, had turned the Ottoman government into a military dictatorship, steering the empire towards a dangerous gamble. However, not everyone in the Ottoman Empire was in favour of the growing German influence. Many pro-British and pro-French factions opposed Germany's increasing role, particularly after Germany supported the annexation of Bosnia, a majority Muslim territory, by Austria-Hungary. This fueled anti-German sentiment, further compounded by reports of friction between Turkish and German military leaders. Public opinion shifted against Germany, with Turkish newspapers even calling for the removal of German military advisors. One of the key figures opposing German influence was the Grand Vizier, Kamil Pasha. He sought to counterbalance Germany's growing control by inviting British naval officers to oversee Ottoman naval reforms and French forces to establish the gendarmerie in the empire. Kamil Pasha also managed to limit the German military presence, hoping to retain some degree of autonomy from Germany's growing influence. This meant that the Ottomans were still on the fence as to who to side with. So during the July crisis of 1914, Enver Pasha had proposed an alliance to the German ambassador in Constantinople, which was rejected, as the German government saw no benefit in being allied with the Ottomans. While Cemal and Tala Pasha proposed alliances with Britain and France as well, which were also promptly rejected. The Kaiser found out about the Ottoman attempts to ally with the French and British and was furious. But another opportunity for an alliance would present itself when Winston Churchill seized 2 Ottoman ships being constructed in British shipyards, even though the Ottomans had already paid for them. The Kaiser saw an opportunity and ordered for the alliance to be reconsidered. The German government then offered 2 of their warships as replacements as a sign of good faith and to win the Ottomans over. On the 1st of August 1914, the Ottoman Empire and Germany signed a secret treaty of alliance, with Germany promising to defend Ottoman territory if threatened. Just days later, the German warships, pursued by the British Royal Navy, were granted passage through the Dardanelles Strait into Constantinople, despite the Ottoman Empire's official neutrality. To sidestep international law, the ships were transferred to the Ottoman Navy, renamed but remained crewed by German sailors disguised in Ottoman uniforms. This move, coupled with Britain's seizure of 2 Ottoman ships under construction, pushed the Ottomans closer to their Central Powers. However, the 2 warships in the Black Sea, still manned by German crews disguised in Ottoman uniforms, complicated matters. The ships, commanded by a German admiral, launched a surprise attack on the Russian naval bases in Crimea and provoked Russia into declaring war on the Ottomans, which meant that now Ottoman territory was under threat. This lined up perfectly with the secret treaty signed amongst the Germans and Ottomans. A few months later, Sultan Mehmed V would issue a proclamation. "O Muslims, ye who are smitten with happiness and are on the verge of sacrificing your life and your goods for the cause of right and braving perils, gather now around the imperial throne. Obey the commands of the Almighty, who in the Quran promises us bliss in this and in the next world. Embrace ye the foot of the Caliph's throne, and know ye that the state is at war with Russia, England, France, and their allies, and that these are the enemies of Islam. The chief of the believers, the Caliph, invites you all as Muslims to join in the holy war." Following all these events, the Ottomans had officially entered the war on the side of the Central Powers, a decision that would seal their fate. While they hoped for revival through alliance with Germany, the war instead accelerated their collapse. After years of brutal conflict, internal strife, and devastating defeats, the Ottoman Empire crumbled. The Treaty of Sevres carved up their remaining territories, and by 1922, the empire that had stood for over 6 centuries ceased to exist. In its place, a republic would rise from the ashes, but the Ottoman dream of reclaiming glory was gone forever.